1, 2, 3, 4. If you can do all your stuff, what can figure it out? That's how it chooses you.
Oh, hey.
Hi, Claire.
How goes it?
It's going really well. Although it doesn't sound like it because I'm pausing. Usually I'm much more excited if it's actually going really well, right? But no, it's going well. I'm just always tired. I'm always slightly more tired than I wish I was.
Do you remember when we were teenagers and we thought we were tired all the time?
Oh my God.
And adults would say things like, you have no idea. We really did have no idea.
We really had no idea. I wake up some mornings and I'm like, I have to do this again. I have to get out of bed again. I just got out of bed yesterday.
What the fuck is going on?
Yeah. Spending time with Jess and Jeffrey and their wonderful child. I'm just like, where does that energy come from? Constant.
Jess and Jeffrey, friends of the podcast, mountain dwellers, wonderful people.
I like that you contextualize them every time.
Well, you know, every episode could be someone's first.
It's true.
We want them to feel
welcome. That's right. There's no exclusivity here. You too get to know how wonderful Jeffrey and Jess are.
I mean, it doesn't choose us. It chooses you.
That's right. How are you?
I'm doing well. I got my second dose of the vaccine this week.
Oh, yeah. How was that?
It was good. I went up to Cheyenne, Wyoming, and the weather was very wet, which is a problem out here, as we've discussed. So roads were treacherous. It was a bit of a sketchy situation, but come hell or high water, I was getting that shot in the arm.
Yeah.
I did have a fever and felt a little under the weather for one day and then just felt a little off all week. Not sick. It was very mild, but it definitely threw me for a loop. You know, I was angry that it was slowing me down. This is why you need a lovely person in your life. Lovely people in your life that say, hey, maybe you shouldn't be so hard on yourself for what you did or did not accomplish this week. You did a big thing that's going to like protect you and other people around you moving forward. And it took a little bit of a toll.
Yeah. What with the fever and all, maybe you could be nice to yourself.
Yeah.
Your body's like, I'm literally fighting right now. I'm literally in a fight right now, like inside.
A shit fight, as Adam Savage would say.
Exactly, as Adam Savage. Don't make me do the dishes too. I've got enough going on inside. Yeah. Please stop making me do the dishes. Just stop making me do the dishes, period. Don't ever make me do the dishes again. My body's like, I'll take a fever. Fever sounds great. No more dishes.
Do I get to rest?
Yeah, exactly. It's gray today, and I think it's going to be gray for the next few days, which is very rare and is kind of something I have to contend with because I really could just go back to bed. I can't ever live on the East Coast again. I'll just sleep all the time.
Yeah, I mean, also because we're spoiled brats in Colorado, as I've said before. When it comes to sunshine, we're fortunate. But not right now, everybody.
Yeah, right now, we understand your lives better because we don't have abundant, free sunshine.
We feel your sorrow.
Yes. Your gray, gooey sorrow. That I need you to tell me about that shirt because I like them buttons.
Oh, thanks. Certain members of my family really like buying me clothes for Christmas, which is very sweet and I appreciate it. But they rarely pick out something I like.
Yeah.
They pick stuff out from me that reminds me of my real old fat days, and I don't like it.
Yeah.
One Christmas, I think it was 2 years ago, I picked this shirt out on Amazon and put it on my list. But then I forgot. I opened it on Christmas morning and I was like, oh no, as I saw it was clothes. I was like, they bought me clothes. And then I took it out and I said, oh my God, this shirt is so cool. And I was really shocked. And they said, yeah, you picked it out. It's like, oh. And I thought to myself, no wonder I like it so much.
Yeah. Isn't it like interesting that we have to hide the fact that we pick out clothes we like and other people might not? Like somehow that's offensive to the gift giver. Yeah. That our tastes don't coincide.
Clothes are hard.
They really are. Because bodies are so different.
Yeah, I don't give clothes for gifts. I don't get clothes very often unless I know specifically what I want and request that.
It kind of recontextualizes the whole socks and underwear thing from the parents. Because especially as children, we're changing so regularly. Our tastes change so quickly. We're like, I got you this shirt in October for Christmas and now it's December and you hate it. Like, you really liked this style 6 weeks ago.
Right.
God damn it. You're why I'm tired.
What do you mean you're not into Z Cavaricci's anymore?
You don't like Ed Hardy anymore?
What happened to that hypercolor shirt I got you? Hey, that's a little late 80s fashion gab for you folks today.
For anyone who imprinted on John Hughes movies and neon-colored clothing, that was for you. Oh, let me give you another update, though, because you guys know that we did an episode on Holy Graffiti, is the name of the episode. It posted late last summer. And the New Yorker had a follow-up article about the Surinabis giant, one of those chalk carvings in the hillside.
Oh, cool.
The National Trust owns that piece of land. Like, some lord owns most of it, but then he carved out that little piece for the National Trust. And they finally got around to actually sending out people who could test the soil for its age. And so they dug down and they discovered that the earliest human intervention in that drawing is between 700 and 1100 AD. So that's a medieval chalk hillside.
Whoa. So they're locking in on what exactly happened.
Yes, exactly. And so it's called the Surinabis giant because there was an abbey there before Henry VIII, shut them all down. And so just imagine monks living in this abbey, looking up at a giant cock on a hillside. And that kind of tells you all you need to know about people, really.
Yeah.
That tells you a lot.
It does. Oh, cool. Thanks for the update.
Yeah. Everybody, this is the podcast It Chooses You, which you know if you're listening to it. So it's kind of redundant that I tell you, but we tell you every week.
It's chosen you. You've chosen it.
That's right. I'm Teresa Sparks.
I am Claire Patton.
Yeah, we talk about things we like because spreading joy is good.
Please subscribe, and most importantly, download our episodes if you enjoy this. It really helps us spread the word. Thank you.
I was thinking we should introduce ourselves as Lady Hawk and Otter from that smidgen. I was thinking that'd be amazing. This is Teresa and Claire, but also Lady Hawk and Otter.
Which episode was that?
The smidgen about Dramarama, Mayor of Easttown, and Cruel Summer. You talked about both of those series. Yeah. Oh my God.
I really want to be Lady Hawk.
Oh, yeah.
But I acknowledge that I'm probably Otter. But damn, I want to be Lady Hawk.
We had to, in one of my classes this week, my orthopedic anatomy class, he's like, tell me these things about yourself and what animal you would be if you were an animal. And immediately I was like, I know exactly what animal I would be. I would be a raven. So if you want to be Lady Hawk, I can be a raven. But I don't want to be Raven because Raven is very gothic and pale and pasty, which I am not.
I also feel like Lady Hawk and Otter is funnier.
It really is.
Well, Lady Hawk, are you ready to do this?
I am.
We are talking about something I like today and something I know you like today. Today, we're going to talk about plants.
Yes. I'm so excited that this is the topic this week for many reasons that I will not hijack your story to get into. I'll hijack you in the middle. I'll wait until you get started.
Yeah, wait till I'm comfortable.
Yeah, and then I'll just horn my way in and take over. Cool.
So I have been gardening.
Yay.
And I've said before on the podcast, but I'll say it again, that I'm not really sure if that's an act of hope or stupidity on my part.
Oh, it can always be both.
Yeah.
Both and.
Because there is this thing where maybe you've learned from your mistakes before. It's like the way people talk about childbirth, right? Like, you forget the pain.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of feel that way about gardening. Like, just enough time has passed that I am once again seduced by potential.
That's a great way of putting it, actually. That's what a garden is. It's a seductress. I might bring you food. I might bring you herbs. I might bring you anything you need. Might.
Hey, come over here. Bring me some compost. I might give you something good. I might not, but I might. I garden for two reasons. Well, there's probably more than that, but like two main reasons. One is that I fucking love plants. I call it being plant sick. I'll just sit there and stare at them. And I have no idea what's happening to me or to them, but I am just mesmerized sometimes. And this is particularly in spring, and it's not every day, but there have been halves of hours spent just staring at the plants I have and the plants around me. Do you identify with that at all? Or
Sure. I work with plants.
Yeah.
And I talk to them constantly as I'm working with them. I'm like, oh, you're so pretty. Look at you. Oh, you need a different leaf. That leaf's not going to do it all. I'm going to take the leaf off. So it's an ongoing conversation between me and the plant where I'm the only one doing the talking. Poor plant.
They might be talking back and you just don't hear it.
That's right. And I don't hear it or don't acknowledge that they are. Can't perceive it. But I also started herbs this semester.
You're studying herbs.
I'm studying herbs, yeah, for my Chinese herbal medicine master's degree. And that's super fun. I have some classmates who are very nervous about it because they're like, it's just plants in bags. I'm like, no, it's plants in bags. Like you get to look at a plant and touch a plant and smell it and like learn about it. It's amazing. Yeah. So I'm fully on board. I also love them.
And you're also looking at them from the perspective of how they can help us, which is super cool.
Plant friends are very powerful friends.
The other reason I garden is because I freaking love homegrown vegetables.
Yeah. There's nothing better than a tomato in July. Oof.
Is that your favorite?
Yes. I love tomatoes. I love them. Still warm from the sun. Super sweet. Amazing.
Oh, I love tomatoes. Tomato sandwich in the summer.
Tom Robbins you told me this story. Do you want to tell it? You should tell them.
So there is an interview with Tom Robbins, the author, the brilliant author of Jitterbug Perfume,
Skinny Legs and All,
Another Roadside Attraction, many, many incredible books. And Tom Robbins was asked if he were sentenced to death, what he would have for his last meal. Mm-hmm. And he said, a tomato sandwich on white bread, probably Wonder Bread, with mayonnaise, salt and pepper. And that was his answer. And I have to say, I fully agree.
My mouth is watering as you describe it. It's so delicious.
I try not to really buy tomatoes the rest of the year. I try to only eat them during the summer. We buy canned tomatoes, of course, and those are wonderful. But I love an heirloom tomato. And I have a story for you today about a tomato from your part of the world, from West Virginia.
Nice.
Heirloom tomato variety called the Mortgage Lifter. Do you know this one?
I don't. I'm so excited.
Well, here we go. I'm just going to tell you a little West Virginia story real quick.
I love that name, the Mortgage Lifter. I love that name. This is like one thing I love about plants is the species variety names, because it's people who are scientific and who are very precise and who do experiments to get these certain qualities. And then their poetry comes out when they name it. And I love that. The contrast of those things makes me very happy.
And there is something seductive about heirloom tomato names. They often suggest a story.
Mm-hmm.
The Mortgage Lifter tomato was developed in West Virginia by Marshall Cletus Biles. His nickname was Radiator Charlie.
Okay.
The radio show Living on Earth did an episode on him, and apparently his grandson interviewed him at the age of 85. And you can actually, in that episode of Living on Earth, you can hear the original recording.
Nice.
We're just going to call him Charlie. Charlie grew up in North Carolina, where he started working in the cotton fields at the age of 4.
Yep.
He obviously wasn't formally educated. He became an airplane pilot and then a National Guardsman. And while he was in the National Guard, he started wrestling in the Appalachian Mountains.
Mm-hmm.
And he would get $1 a minute in the ring. If he could last 10 minutes, every minute after that he would get an extra $1. And he was apparently really good.
Oh, wow.
Wrestler. He finally settled in Logan, West Virginia.
I know Logan for sure. When I played softball as a child, we played against teams from that county, Logan County. Just the people there they're somehow just huge, just like tall and big and strong. It was very odd.
They were probably eating Mortgage Lifter tomatoes.
Probably. I'm like, you guys look like adults. We're 13. Like, what? Yeah, it was intense.
He settled in Logan, West Virginia, and he opened a radiator shop. But the thing he did was he situated the shop at the bottom of a huge hill leading into the mountains, so that as these big transport and logging trucks would blow their radiators at the top of the hill, they'd just coast down, and there he was with his shop at the bottom of the hill.
That's awesome. Yep.
Yeah, I thought that was brilliant.
Permaculture business development. Note the patterns.
Charlie was also an inventor and a tinkerer. He really wasn't much of a gardener, but he says, quote, "Well, I've always had a mind of doing things that nobody else could do. I've never been to school a day in my life, but anything I wanted to do, I done it."
Mm-hmm.
So in the 1940s, in sort of a response to the Great Depression, he decided that he wanted to grow a tomato that would be large enough to feed a whole family.
Nice.
So with no official plant breeding experience of any kind, he set out. What he did was he planted 10 tomatoes in a ring with one in the center. And then he took a baby ear syringe to pollinate the center tomato with the pollen of the other tomatoes. And then he'd save the seeds and plant them until he got the tomato he wanted. So this took him several years, but he finally grew a tomato plant that would grow 1 to 2 pound fruits that tasted good.
Wow.
This was what would become the Mortgage Lifter. The tomatoes on the plants were really big, as I said, and he started selling the seedlings for $1 each. So this is in the 40s. And $1 for a tomato seedling was a lot of money. I looked it up and it actually translates to about $19.
Yeah, unheard of.
We don't spend that much on tomato seedlings.
Well, and at the time, all the tomatoes had seeds that you could propagate. It wasn't Monsanto nonsense where you weren't able to save the seed and replant it. And so why would you ever pay $1 for a seedling?
But because the tomatoes were so big and so tasty, they became really popular, and people would actually come from counties and states around to buy his seedlings. And so with that $1 per seedling, he was actually able to pay off his $6,000 mortgage. And that's why the tomato is called the mortgage lifter.
Nice.
It's still around. And because I was so inspired by that story, I've decided if I can get my hands on a seedling, I'm going to grow one this year.
You know, my sister and my niece for their summer trip are going to go around to West Virginia state parks. So they will be around a place where I bet they could find one. Leave this in, because if I make her famous for doing it, it might be more likely to happen. My sister doesn't care about plants at all. I offered her a plant for Mother's Day. She's like, please don't give me something I have to keep alive. I cannot handle it. So
in researching this episode, I discovered something pretty obvious, which is that plants keep their stories to themselves a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
We only have stories about plants when we've interacted with them. There really are stories that feature plants. I was really curious if plants or vegetables played any part in any kind of military conflict. And so I Googled vegetable war, and I found this story that I'm going to tell you now, which is the story of the North Atlantic Vegetable War that I pretty much Googled into existence.
You manifested a vegetable war. Right on.
My source for the last story was the Living on Earth radio show. Their website is loe.org. Also, there was a piece about Radiator Charlie in the Williamson Daily News. It was a piece by Dwight Williamson. I actually think it's a blog. My sources for the story about the North Atlantic Vegetable War is, of course, Wikipedia, the U.S. Coast Guard website. There's an article by Commander William A. McKinstry called The Long Blue Line, the North Atlantic Vegetable War, an article in Cape Cod Life by Don Wilding, and an article on Defense Media Network by Craig Collins called Rum War, the U.S. Coast Guard and Prohibition. In order to get into the story, I have to give you some background on the setting. So we're going to talk about Prohibition era and specifically rum running.
Speaking of rum running, my roommate Mike, his great-grandma was a rum runner in Florida. She had a boat that she would take back and forth to Cuba. And I say that, and I'm not sure if it's Cuba, which is unfortunate, but she was apparently a complete badass, and there's a book written about her.
I feel like we need to do an episode on her.
Oh, that's a good call. We can do that.
As most people probably know, from 1920 to 1933, the U.S. government prohibited the sale, importation, transportation, and manufacture of alcoholic beverages. Why? Ask Carrie Nation.
Ask Carrie Nation, that's right.
Our good friend Carrie Nation, I say that facetiously. Check out the episode we did called Temperance and Axes to learn more about the
Temperance Warrior, and also to learn about how much liquor the average American was consuming before Prohibition, which was a staggering amount.
As Prohibition became a thing, rum running began, with smugglers using boats to bring in contraband alcohol from the Bahamas and from Canada, actually, which I didn't know.
The Bahamas is what I meant when I said Cuba.
Just south of Newfoundland in Canada, there are two French islands called Saint-Pierre and Miquelon. I probably said that wrong. I will apologize now. And that's all you get. Rum runners like Bill McCoy and Al Capone were based out of these two islands. Bill McCoy established the practice of bringing the alcohol to just outside the U.S. jurisdiction in international waters, about 3 miles off the coast of New York, where other smaller, faster boats that they called contact boats would meet him. These boats, because they were smaller and faster, they could more easily outrun the U.S. Coast Guard. These boats would meet him there and purchase his alcohol. So there was a constant line of these contact boats anchored off the coast of Metro New York, and this area became known as Rum Row. It was basically a 20th century pirate island, which makes me happy. So, of course, the U.S. Coast Guard was assigned to handle these rum runners. And as Prohibition was enacted, the Coast Guard was like, oh shit, this is actually a really big problem, and we don't have the personnel to handle this.
Yeah. How many thousands and thousands of miles of coastline? And the Coast Guard's like, we just can't do it, you guys. These boats are tiny. We can't even see them. We need help. Please help us. So when you prohibit something completely, you're just opening a market for the boldest, cruelest, most criminally sophisticated people to make a shit ton of money trading in it.
Yeah. The Coast Guard had 4,000 people, like total. That was it. In the following years, they expanded their ranks from 4 to 10,000, and they actually added a bunch of ships, the cutter-class ships, to pursue the rum runners' motherships. The rum runners were super clever, and I really enjoyed learning about some of their tactics. If they were pursued by the Coast Guard, they'd often ditch their cargo by tying all of the crates of alcohol together. They'd kick one crate off the ship and they would all boom, 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 fall into the ocean. Mm-hmm. But of course, they didn't want to just leave it there, so they had to tie a buoy to it. However, if the Coast Guard's there, they're going to see the buoy. So what they would do is they would attach a block of rock salt to the buoy. So the buoy would initially sink, and then over the next few days, that rock salt would dissolve in the water, and the buoy would float back up, and then they could come back and find their cargo.
So smart.
I mean, yeah.
Amazing.
As I said, the Coast Guard expanded their ranks and they added all these cutter ships. One of these cutter ships that was newly manufactured for the war on rum runners was the Daphne, which was launched in 1932.
All right.
The tactic was for these cutters, like Daphne, to create a barrier between the rum running motherships and the contact boats. They would often circle the rum runners to deter any kind of transaction from taking place, like moms or hall monitors, right? Like, I see you.
I see what you're doing.
And I do not approve.
That's right. I don't approve and I see your rock salt.
You know, a lot of these rum running ships had freaking machine guns and stuff.
Oh, sure.
What the Coast Guard was doing. But, you know, they're just kind of just sailing around them, I guess.
I also like the image at the beginning of like a single Coast Guard ship and sort of 15 rum running motherships.
Right.
And it's like, I'm just going to do loops. And then I guess when I'm at the far end, the near end will do the thing. But I'm here. I'm trying to do my job.
It must have been really frustrating, you know?
Well, and also I'm sure that the people in the Coast Guard wanted rum as much as the next person. And so not only are they frustrated trying to stop it, they're like, there's all this rum that we can't have and it's right here. Frustrating on so many levels. God.
The Coast Guard actually also started seizing rum-running ships, but then they would take those ships and use them in sting operations. So they'd dress in civilian gear and kind of set up a transaction, and then they'd be like, JK, LOL, rip off their masks. We are the Coast Guard. And then the rum runners would always say, foiled again. That's fact.
Yes, it's in all my sources.
On the night of Wednesday, June 15th, the Daphne came upon a Newfoundland registered ship, the Gonif, 81 miles off the coast of New York. The Coast Guard crews had to know what was up, right? If they saw a ship, unless it was just completely obvious who it was, they were probably like, yeah, they're probably rum runners, right?
Anchored just outside, like just inside international waters, just over the boundary.
The Coast Guard at this point had hired Elizabeth Friedman, who was this expert cryptologist who was intercepting their radio transmissions and using cryptology magic to decode them.
That's so cool. Okay, we're going to do an episode on her too.
So I'm assuming too that it's quite possible, and we've got to kind of fill in some details here, but I'm wondering too, like maybe they intercepted a radio communique and they're like, these fuckers are around here somewhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Daphne approaches the Gonif and calls them to halt. So they're like, we're going to board you and we're going to inspect the ship. The way the commander of the Daphne tells it, the Gonif at this point took evasive maneuvers. So they took off. They started zigzagging.
Shit! Running away really fast.
They create a smoke screen by dumping diesel fuel in their wake and lighting it on fire.
Oh my God.
Which it's like, okay, A, no wonder we're fucked environmentally.
Yeah.
But B, also kind of cool.
Also kind of cool. It also reminds me, same time frame of that Bonnie and Clyde move where they'd drive into a cornfield and do donuts in a cornfield to kick up so much dust that the cops couldn't see them anymore. And then they'd like drive out of the dust cloud to get away.
Oh, that's so cool. But according to the crew of the Gonif, there they were, minding their own business on Rum Row, when the Daphne pulls up and its crew, including the food workers, all come on deck and began throwing vegetables at them.
Is that a great offense or something? Is there something about having vegetables thrown at you that's deeply offensive that I don't know culturally somewhere?
I throw my rutabaga at you, sir.
I mean, it would hurt. Rutabagas are tough. Getting pelted with a beet would not feel good. But if it's, like a lettuce or a squishy vegetable or something. What time of year was it? Was it tomato, Claire? Was it in August?
It was June.
It was June, okay. So the tomatoes would be too small. It wouldn't be a tomato at that point.
Useless. Tomatoes would be useless in this encounter.
This is the problem with vegetable wars, is you really have to time it according to the seasons to make sure your ammo is correct.
Oh, I love it. Then, according to the crew of the Gonif, the Daphne crew starts spraying them with their fire hose. And this is the point at which I'm like, why did they do this? Did they do this because they weren't drunk?
Did they do this because they weren't drunk or because they were?
Right. Yeah. Or did they do this out of this sense of powerlessness? These dudes are getting away with this shit and we're just over it and we can't really do anything. So we're just going to throw vegetables at them. I don't know.
Right. Oh my God.
At that point, the crew of the Gonif, the rum runners, did what anyone else would do and retaliated by throwing their own vegetables.
Food fight!
And jars of molasses onto the deck of the Daphne.
That'll fuck up a ship. Jars of molasses. So cleaning that up, that's no joke. That's a fight. Yeah, veggies rinse away. Molasses means you're serious.
Molasses is a big insult in the maritime world.
It is, yeah.
Things took a serious turn when an officer on board the Daphne was knocked unconscious by a turnip.
This is maybe my favorite story I've ever heard, actually. I'm just, oh my God, a turnip. Okay, well, like we said, those root vegetables, don't mess with them.
That's gonna hurt.
It is. That's not a joke. Yeah, concussion.
What, do you play football? No, just got hit by a turnip. So at that point, the crew on the Daphne was like, take that. And they started putting bolts into their potatoes that they were throwing.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, so they escalated for sure after the turnip thing. So they're throwing these potatoes at the Gonif with bolts in them. And at that point, the crew on the Gonif was like, fuck this. And they just got the fuck out.
This is like every child pillow fight ever known. It starts off, hee, we're just having a pillow fight, and then somebody gets hurt, and then they get mad, and then they start going for blood. It's exactly what that is. Oh my God.
It is. The Gonif takes off. The Daphne starts to pursue her. The Daphne rammed the stern of the Gonif, and the Gonif was like, oh hell no. The Gonif finally managed to receive some assistance from the Mary F. Ruth, its sister ship, who had a similar but non-vegetable related encounter with the Daphne a few days before.
Oh, so maybe the crew of the Daphne were just they're just fucking shit up. Yeah.
They might have just been dicks.
The sister ship thing it gave me pause for a second, because saying that the Gonif sister ship somehow implies that the rum runners are super organized and that this is essentially like a quasi-military operation.
Right.
Like they're flying under the same flag somehow.
Yeah, they're like pirate bros.
Rum pirate bros. Got it.
The rum runners, they had to adjust cargo to maintain speed, so they stopped. And they were adjusting cargo from ship to ship, and the Daphne just sat there and just watched them and then blocked them so that they couldn't call at any ports, right? Finally, the Gonif and the Mary F. Ruth were able to escape and sort of limped back to Halifax a few days later, pretty badly damaged. At this point, the Canadian government was pissed off. So they knew that they had rum runners on their hands, but they just didn't really give a fuck, I guess.
These are Canadian people throwing vegetables?
The U.S. Coast Guard was throwing the vegetables.
But it was off the coast of Canada.
It was off the coast of New York, but they were coming down from Canada.
Oh, I see. Okay. I was like, oh my God, what could drive a Canadian to put a bolt in a turnip? Jesus.
When word reached Canada that this incident had happened, the Canadian government was actually pretty pissed off because this was the way the Coast Guard treated Canadian-owned ships.
Canadian-owned rum-running ship?
Yeah.
Is the Canadian government allowed to be upset about that?
Well, they were.
Whether they are or not, they were, yeah.
The Canadian Secretary of State sent a formal complaint protesting their harassment of Canadian vessels by the Coast Guard.
This sounds to me like the Canadian government's like, what the fuck is the United States doing prohibiting the sale and consumption of liquor? That's the stupidest thing we've ever heard. Do they not? How do they get through the winters down there? And Canada's like, you know what? We're cool with the rum runners going down because you guys are dumb. That's a dumb law.
There was a bit of a history there because when prohibition started in the US, it had actually been a thing in Canada for a while and was ending. The Canadian government granted the right of prohibiting alcohol to each province. Before prohibition in the US, there was a lot of prohibition in Canada, and the US was rum running up to Canada. Though they didn't prohibit the manufacture of it, just the sale. So there was still alcohol in Canada. Now it was sort of Canada's turn to rum run down to us. So there was a lot of history there. I'm not quite sure how everything plays in.
Is this as close as the U.S. and Canada have ever come to armed conflict? Is this the U.S.-Canadian war?
It might be. I mean, if the Gonif had thrown maple syrup at the Daphne, we would have really been in trouble.
That's how you know they mean it. Molasses, sure. But when it's maple syrup, it's war.
I mean, that shit's expensive.
It is.
And delicious. Please don't get angry at me, Canada.
An angry Canadian. No, you'd have to do so much work to anger a Canadian that when they are mad, they will just kill you.
So immediately after this encounter, the media got a hold of the story, which dubbed this conflict the North Atlantic Vegetable War. Of course, Prohibition ended less than a year later, in 1933. The Daphne was transferred to the West Coast, eventually serving in World War II. The Daphne was decommissioned in 1946, and now we're all wasted 24/7. That's the story of the North Atlantic Vegetable War.
That's amazing. Canada's like, yeah, you guys finally came to the conclusion we've already come to. Do you not want to try and learn from other nations that are right next door that prohibition's dumb? We keep trying to tell you it doesn't work, but sure, go ahead and try it.
I mean, I feel like prohibition just shows the power of a bunch of angry white women.
Yeah, I know. We can accomplish a lot. I just wish we would drive all of our energy to accomplishing something worthwhile instead of ridiculous. Yeah.
100% agree.
It's so good. Thank you so much. I want to know more. Yes. Somebody has done a dissertation on this and I'm going to find it. It's amazing. Also, let's talk about this in terms of so rum is made from sugarcane, right? And so we can look at it if we want to, like sugarcane fighting turnips somehow. Right. Different styles of plant actually waging war on one another through the medium of people. Like the turnip is actually driving the captain of the Daphne around saying, you need to find a rum ship. And the sugarcane is like whispering in the ear of the captain of the Gonif saying, you need to find those Coast Guard motherfuckers.
Plants are controlling us. We just don't know it yet.
That's right.
We're going to turn now from the vegetable war to the story of a particular tree. At the corner of South Finley and Deering in Athens, Georgia, is a white oak that's famous. In the early 1800s, there was a white oak on the property of William Henry Jackson. The tree began its life somewhere between the 16th and 18th century, and Jackson, cherishing childhood memories of the tree, deeded the tree into ownership of itself.
Nice.
Quote, in consideration of the great affection which he bears said tree, and his great desire to see it protected, has conveyed, and by these presents do convey unto the said oak tree entire possession of itself, and of all land within 8 feet of it on all sides.
That's awesome.
Of course, there's no real legal precedence for this. It's probably not really legal, but residents of the area have treated this as law ever since.
That's great.
The tree that owns itself fell in 1942 during a storm despite efforts to preserve it. But people had been collecting acorns from the tree for years and started saplings from the tree. So a sapling was planted where the original tree stood. The entire town came together. There was this big ceremony. They selected the best sapling. They brought in professors of horticulture to consult and plant the tree. They took this all very seriously. So they had this ceremony, and there was even someone officially entrusted with the tree's care and so on. Because the sapling was determined to officially be the oak's heir, it was eligible to inherit the deed. So now the son of the tree that owns itself was planted in its place and is now a 50-foot tall oak, officially called the son of the tree that owns itself. So my source for this story was Wikipedia. And I just thought I wanted to end there on this idea of a community coming together to just protect this one life.
That's a really beautiful story. I like that so the tree that's on the corner of what and what?
It's at the corner of South Finley and Deering.
At the corner of South Finley and Deering is the son of the tree that owns itself. And it's been growing there. And that's its name, is the son of the tree that owns itself. That's a very beautiful story. It's interesting that they would be okay, that it's a cute community story to write into law that a tree can own itself in Georgia.
Yep.
When Georgia has lots of other problems related to human rights.
I want to leave you all today with something a little bit different. It's a really special time out here on the prairie, and something pretty rare is happening. We've had so much moisture that in addition to the beautiful birdsong that we always have, we actually have frogs in our seasonal creek.
That's amazing. This is not an amphibious landscape, you guys. That's quite a thing.
Yeah, we get 14 inches of rain a year usually, so very dry. The evening sounds out here are so beautiful, and I actually recorded them so that I could share them with you. Yeah, I wanted to share them with you. This is the soundtrack to my life right now. The most beautiful time of the year. I think on this recording, you may even hear our neighbor's cow from time to time. So as we go out here, enjoy the sounds of a spring evening on the prairie. I hope it brings you as much happiness as it's been bringing me. Thank you all for listening.
And we love you. Have a great week.